Good morning, guys, and welcome to a new session of Percy Jackson Read Aloud. Last chapter we were reading Percy, Annabeth, and Grover flew back to New York City. Percy convinced Grover and Annabeth to go back to Camp Half Blood to tell Chiron what had happened, and he went to the Empire State Building, managed to get to the 600th floor, and now Olympus is being described as well as the palace. And right when he gets to the trophy room, he describes Zeus and another god who is sitting right next to him. And if you listen to all of the clues, you might have guessed who this other god was. So, I'm going to read the very last chapter. His throne was a deep sea fisherman's chair. It was the simple swiveling kind, with a black leather seat and a built-in holster for a fishing pole. Instead of a pole, the holster held a bronze trident, flickering with green light around the tips. The gods weren't moving or speaking, but there was tension in the air, as if they just finished an argument. I approached the fisherman's throne and knelt at his feet. Father? I dared not to look up. My heart was racing. I could feel the energy emanating from the two gods. If I said the wrong thing, I had no doubt they would blast me into dust. To my left, Zeus spoke. Should you not address the master of this house first, boy? I kept my head down and waited. Peace, brother, Poseidon finally said. His voice stirred my oldest memories. That warm glow I remembered as a baby, the sensation of this god's hands on my forehead. The boy defers to his father. This is only right. You still claim him then? Zeus asked menacingly. You claim this child whom you've sired against our sacred oath. I have admitted my wrongdoing, Poseidon said. Now I would hear him speak. Wrongdoing. A lump welled up on my throat. Was that all I was? A wrongdoing? A result of a god's mistake? I have spared him once already, Zeus grumbled, daring to fly through my domain. Bah! I should have blasted him out of the sky for his imprudence. And risk destroying your own master bolt? Poseidon asked. Let us hear him out, brother. Zeus grumbled some more. I shall listen, he decided. Then I shall make up my mind whether or not to cast this boy down from Olympus. Perseus, Poseidon said, look at me. I did, and I wasn't sure what I saw in his face. There was no clear sign of love or approval, nothing to encourage me. It was like looking at the ocean. Some days you could tell what mood it was in. Most days, though, it was unreadable, mysterious. I got the feeling Poseidon really didn't know what to think of me. He didn't know whether he was happy to have me as a son or not. In a strange way, I was glad that Poseidon was so distant. If he tried to apologize or told me he loved me or even smiled, it would have felt fake. Like a human dad, making some lame excuse for not being around. I could live with that. After all, I wasn't sure about him yet, either. Address Lord Zeus, boy, Poseidon told me. Tell him your story. So I told Zeus everything, just as it had happened. I took out the metal cylinder which began sparking in the sky god's presence and laid it at his feet. There was a long silence, broken only by the crackle of the hearth's fire. Zeus opened his palm. The lightning bolt flew into it. As he closed his fists, the metallic points flared with electricity, until he was holding what looked more like the classic thunderbolt, a 20-foot javelin of arcing, hissing energy that made the hairs on my scalp rise. I sense the boy tells the truth, Zeus muttered, but that Ares would do such a thing, it is most unlike him. He is proud and impulsive, Poseidon said. It runs in the family. Lord? I asked. The both said, yes. Ares didn't act alone. Someone else, something else, came up with the idea. I described my dreams and the feeling I'd had on the beach. that momentary breath of evil that had seemed to stop the world and maybe made Ares back up from killing me. In my dreams, I said. The voice told me to bring the bolt to the underworld. Ares hinted that he'd been having dreams too. I think he was being used just as I was to start a war. You are accusing Hades after all? Zeus asked. No, I said. I mean, Lord Zeus, I've been in the presence of Hades. This feeling on the beach was different. It was the same thing I felt when I got close to that pit. That was the entrance to Tartarus, wasn't it? Something powerful and evil is steering down there. Something even older than gods. Poseidon and Zeus looked at each other. They had a quick, intense discussion in ancient Greek. I only caught one word, father. Poseidon made some kind of suggestion, but Zeus cut him off. Poseidon tried to argue. Zeus held up his hand angrily. We will speak of this no more, Zeus said angrily. No, Zeus said. I must go personally to purify this thunderbolt in the waters of Lemnos to remove the human taint from its metal. He rose and looked at me. His expression softened just a fraction of a degree. You have done me a service, boy. Few heroes could have accomplished as much. I had helped, sir, I said. Grover Underwood and Annabeth Chase. To show you my thanks. So, Annabeth Chase, and that's where Percy stops talking, and now there's another dialogue. To show you my thanks, I shall spare you your life. I do not trust you, Percy Jackson. I do not like what your arrival means for our future in the Olympus. But for the sake of peace in the family, I shall let you live. Thank you, sir. Do not presume to fly again. Do not let me find you here when I return. Otherwise, you should taste this bolt, and it shall be your last sensation. Thunder shook the palace. With a blinding flash of lightning, Zeus was gone. I was alone in the throne room with my father. Your uncle, Poseidon sighed, has always had a flair for dramatic exits. I think he would have done well as the god of theater. An uncomfortable silence. Sir, I said, what was in that pit? Poseidon regarded me. Have you not guessed? Kronos, I said, the king of Titans. Even in the throne room of Olympus far away from Tartarus, the name Kronos darkened the room, made the hearth fire seem not quite so warm on my back. Poseidon gripped his trident. In the first war, Percy, Zeus cut our father Kronos into 1,000 pieces, just as Kronos had done to his own father Uranus. Zeus cast Kronos' remains into the darkest pit of Tartarus. The Titan army was scattered, their mountain fortress on Etna destroyed, their monstrous allies driven into the farthest corners of the earth. And yet, Titans cannot die, any more than we gods can. Whatever is left of Kronos is still alive in some hideous way, still conscious in his eternal pain, still hungry for power. He's healing, I said. He's coming back. Poseidon shook his head. From time to time, over the eons, Kronos has stirred. He enters men's nightmares and breathes evil thoughts. He wakens restless monsters from the depths. But to suggest he could rise from the pit is another thing. That's what he intends, father. That's what he said. Poseidon was silent for a long time. Lord Zeus has closed discussions on this matter. He will not allow talk of Kronos. You have completed your quest, child. That's all you need to do. But, I stopped myself. Arguing would do no good. It would very possibly anger the only god who I had on my side. As you wish, father. A faint smile played on his lips. Obedience does not come naturally to you, does it? No, sir. I must take some blame for that, I suppose. The sea does not like to be restrained. He rose to his full height and took up his trident. Then he shimmered it and became the size of a regular man, standing directly in front of me. You must go, child. But first, know that your mother has returned. I stared at him, completely stunned. My mother? You will find her at home. Hades sent her when you recovered his helm. Even the Lord of Death pays his debts. My heart was pounding. I couldn't believe it. Would you? I wanted to ask if Poseidon could come with me to see her, but then I realized that was ridiculous. I imagined loading the god of the sea into a taxi and taking him into the Upper East Side. If he'd wanted to see my mom all these years, he would have, and there was many Gabe to think about. Poseidon's eyes took on a little sadness. When you return home, Percy, you must make an important choice. You will find a package waiting in your room. A package? You will understand when you see it. No one can choose your path, Percy. You must decide. I nodded, though I didn't know what he meant. Your mother is a queen among women, Poseidon said wistfully. I had not met such a mortal woman in 1,000 years. Still, I am sorry you were born, child. I have brought you into a hero's fate, and a hero's fate is never happy. It is never anything but tragic. I tried not to feel hurt. Here was my own dad telling me he was sorry I'd been born. I don't mind, Father. Not yet, perhaps, he said. Not yet. But it was an unforgivable mistake on my part. I'll leave you then. I bowed awkwardly. I won't bother you again. I was 5 steps away when he called. Perseus. I turned. There was a different light in his eyes, a fiery kind of pride. You did well, Perseus. Do not misunderstand me. Whatever else you do, know that you are mine. Mine. You are the true son of the sea god. As I walked back through the city of the gods, conversation stopped. The muses paused their concert. People and satyrs and naiads all turned toward me, their faces filled with respect and gratitude, and as I passed, they knelt, as if I were some kind of hero. 15 minutes later, still in a trance, I was back on the streets of Manhattan. I caught a taxi to my mom's apartment, rang the doorbell, and there she was. My beautiful mother, smelling of peppermint and licorice, the weariness and worry evaporating from her face as soon as she saw me. Percy! Oh, thank goodness! Oh, my baby! She crushed the air right out of me. We stood in the hallway as she cried, and she ran her hands through my hair. I'll admit it, my eyes were a little misty too. I was shaking. I was so relieved to see her. She told me she just appeared at the apartment that morning, scaring Gabe half out of his wits. She didn't remember anything since the Minotaur, and she couldn't believe it when Gabe told her I was a wanted criminal, traveling across the country, blowing up national monuments. She'd been going out of her mind with worry all day because she hadn't heard the news. Gabe had forced her to go into work, saying she had a month's salary to make up and she'd better get started. I swallowed back my anger and told her my own story. I tried to make it sound less scary than it had been, but it wasn't easy. I was just getting to the fight with Ares when Gabe's voice interrupted from the living room. Hey, Sally, that meatloaf done yet or what? She closed her eyes. He isn't going to be happy to see you, Percy. The store got 500,000 calls today from Los Angeles. Something about free appliances. Oh yeah, about that. She managed a weak smile. Just don't make him angrier, all right? Come on. In the month had been gone, the apartment had turned into Gabeland. Garbage was ankle deep on the carpet. The sofa had been reupholstered in beer cans. Dirty socks and underwear hung off the lampshades. Gabe and 3 of his big, goony friends were playing poker at the table. When Gabe saw me, his cigar dropped out of his mouth. His face got redder than lava. You've got nerve coming here, you little punk. I thought the police. He's not a fugitive after all, my mom interjected. Isn't that wonderful, Gabe? Gabe looked back and forth between us. He didn't seem to think my homecoming was so wonderful. Bad enough I had to give you back your life insurance money, Sally, he growled. Get me a phone, I'd call the cops. Gabe, no! He raised his eyebrow. Did you just say no? You think I'm going to put up with this punk again? I can still press charges against him for ruining my Camaro. But he raised his hand, and my mother flinched. For the first time, I realized something. Gabe had hit my mother. I didn't know when or how much, but I was sure he'd done it. Maybe it had been going on for years when I wasn't around. A balloon of anger started expanding in my chest. I came toward Gabe, instinctively taking my pen out of my pocket, and he just laughed. What, punk? Are you gonna write on me? You touch me, and you are going to jail forever, you understand? Hey, Gabe, his friend Eddie interrupted. He's just a kid. Gabe looked at him resentfully and mimicked in a falsetto voice, just a kid. His other friends laughed like idiots. I'll be nice to you, punk. Gabe showed me his tobacco-stained teeth. I'll give you 5 minutes to get your stuff and clear out. After that, I call the police. Gabe, my mother pleaded. He ran away, Gabe told her. Let him stay gone. I was itching to uncap Riptide, but even if I did, the blade wouldn't hurt humans. And Gabe, by the loosest definition, was human. My mother took my arm. Percy, please, come on, we'll go to your room. I let her pull me away, my hands still trembling with rage. My room had been completely filled with Gabe's junk. There were stacks of used car batteries, a rotten bouquet of sympathy flowers with a card from somebody who'd seen his Barbara Walters interview. Gabe is just upset, honey, my mother told me. I'll talk to him later. I'm sure it will work out. Mom, it'll never work out, not as long as Gabe is here. She wrung her hands nervously. I'll take you to work with me for the rest of the summer. In the fall, maybe there's another boarding school. Mom. She lowered her eyes. I'm trying, Percy. I need some time. A package appeared on my bed. At least I could have sworn it wasn't there a moment before. It was a battered cardboard box about the right size to fit a basketball. The address on the mailing slip was in my own handwriting. The Gods, Mount Olympus, 600th floor, Empire State Building, New York, New York, with best wishes, Percy Jackson. Over the top of the black marker, in a man's clear, bold print, was the address to our apartment, and the words, return to sender. I suddenly understood what Poseidon had told me on the Olympus. A package, a decision. Whatever else you do, know you are mine. You are the true son of the sea god. I looked at my mother. Mom, do you want Gabe gone? Percy, it isn't that simple. Mom, just tell me. Has he been hitting you? Do you want him gone or not? She hesitated, and then she nodded, almost imperceptibly. Yes, Percy, I do. And I'm trying to get up my courage to tell him. But you can't do this for me. You can't solve my problems. I looked at the box. I could solve her problems. I wanted to slice that package open, plop it on the poker table, and take out what was inside. I could start my very own statue garden right there in the living room. Do you guys understand what has been sent to Percy? Do you remember that he had sent something to the gods when they were in the emporium of statues? That's what a Greek hero would do in the stories, I thought. That's what Gabe deserves. But a hero story always ended in tragedy. Poseidon had told me that. I remembered the underworld, and I thought about Gabe's spirit drifting over in the fields of asphodel, or condemned to some hideous torture behind the barbed wire of the fields of punishment. An eternal poker game, sitting up to his waist in boiling oil, listening to opera music. Did I have the right to send someone there, even Gabe? A month ago, I wouldn't have hesitated. But now, I can do it, I told my mom. One look inside this box, and he'll never bother you again. She glanced at the package and then seemed to understand perfectly. No, Percy, she said, stepping away. You can't. Poseidon called you a queen, I told her. He said he hadn't met a woman like you in 1,000 years. Her cheeks flushed. Percy, you deserve better than this, Mom. You should go to college, get your degree. You can write your novel, meet a nice guy maybe, live in a nice house. You don't need to protect me anymore by staying with Gabe. Let me get rid of him. She wiped a tear off her cheek. You sound so much like your father, she said. He offered to stop the tide for me once. He offered to build me a palace at the bottom of the sea. He thought he could solve all my problems with a wave of his hand. What's wrong with that? Her multicolored eyes seemed to search inside of me. I think you know, Percy. I think you're enough like me to understand. If my life is going to mean anything, I have to live it myself. I can't let a god take care of me or my son. I have to find the courage on my own. Your quest has reminded me of that. We listened to the sound of poker chips and swearing and ESPN from the living room television. I'll leave the box, I said, if he threatens you. She looked pale, but she nodded. Where will you go, Percy? Half-Blood Hill. For the summer or forever? I guess that depends. We locked eyes, and I sensed that we had an agreement. We would see how things stood at the end of the summer. She kissed my forehead. You'll be our hero, Percy. You'll be the greatest of them all. I took one last look around my bedroom. I had a feeling I'd never see it again. Then I walked with my mother to the front door. Leaving so soon, punk? Gabe called after me. Good riddance. I had one last twinge of doubt. How could I turn down the perfect chance to take revenge on him? I was leaving here without saving my mother. Hey, Sally, he yelled. What about that meatloaf, huh? A steely look of anger flared in my mother's eyes, and I thought, just maybe, I was leaving her in good hands after all, her own. The meatloaf is coming right up, dear, she told Gabe. Meatloaf surprise. She looked at me and winked. The last thing I saw as the door swung close was my mother staring at Gabe as if she were contemplating how he would look as a garden statue. And that's all we have time for. We have about 20 pages to finish the book. It's the last chapter, okay? So I'm going to read hopefully all of it or maybe half of it in tomorrow's Read Aloud. I hope you guys have enjoyed Percy Jackson as much as I have. Bye, guys.